All right. So we're going to start our new unit on forces in motion. And for those of us at home, I apologize. It seems things are a little off today because I have one computer that won't connect to the smart board, but it'll let me record, and another computer that will let me record, but won't connect to the smart board. And the mishmash of those two is crazy. As I got one computer running the recording and one computer for the classroom. And I have no doubt I'm going to mess this up at some point today. So there is a pre-apology before I mess those things up. So we're starting our new unit on forces in motion. I have already gone around the class and passed out this to everybody in class, if I am not mistaken. Yes, all of our words for this week. I just walked around and passed it out. I'm not crazy. Good. And here's the crazy thing, Kaylee, about this quarter. We don't have as many vocabulary packets for forces in motion as we did for ecosystems for a few reasons. One, the words keep tumbling over each week. Like, we will talk about force, inertia, like every week, and mass, and those types of things. And also, we're not teaching forces in motion for the entire quarter like we did ecosystems. So you won't have as many vocabulary words, but things will roll over. So everybody has this packet. If you happen to be at home, you can log in and you can get onto Google Classroom. I have this attached in our Google Classroom so you can look at it. If you lose yours, then I'm not giving out any more of those because you have it on Google Classroom and you can look at it there. Bouncing back over to our Nearpod account. Forces in motion. Forces in motion. Now for us in class, we're going to come back and watch this video at the end once I've recorded this. But if you are at home, you need to watch this video because, well, it is super duper important. Everywhere around us, and if you just came from small groups, I apologize because this is going to sound like something that I've already talked about one time. Everywhere around us is forces. Whether these forces are the force of my heart pumping the blood through my body, the force of my breath going out, or the force of my breath going in, pushing the door open to get into school this morning, pulling my chair out from under my desk to sit down, pushing my pencil across my paper, wind blowing, all of those are different types of forces. Yes, sir. Gravity is a force because it pulls. You are correct. Gravity pulling you towards the ground. Anytime you have this going on, you're going to have a force. Now, if you look at your vocabulary, you're going to notice a pretty long definition for force. It says a push or a pull exerted on one object or exerted by one object on another, causing a change in motion. That's a little confusing. We're going to break that down into an extremely easy definition for all of us, and that is, if we look at this, a force is a push or a pull. That is our first definition. That's on the anchor chart, so take some time to jot that down now. A force is a push or a pull. So again, anytime we're talking about force from here on out, we know that that's a push or a pull on something. Now we see this often. If we kick a ball, we push the ball away with our foot. If we're playing tug of war, we're pulling the other team towards us, push or a pull. There are sometimes, though, when pushes and pulls don't necessarily have to come in contact with each other. When I throw a ball in the air, it's very obvious my hand was in contact with the ball. I pushed it out of my arm, and it went up into the air. Now, for some strange reason, that ball comes back down, but I don't see anything pushing or pulling on it. And no, there's no invisible dementors up there pushing it back towards the ground. What is bringing that ball back towards the ground? Gravity. Gravity is pulling it back towards the ground. Now, you've got to be careful. I know this is jumping like a definition ahead here, but gravity is a force that pulls. You don't want to say that gravity pulls you towards the earth. That is a true statement. Gravity pulls you towards the earth, but gravity is a force that pulls. You could be on the moon and you're going to get pulled toward the moon, but you're not going to say it's because gravity pulls you towards the moon. Like that's the moon's gravity that's doing the pulling at that point, not the earth's gravity. So you got to understand it's the gravity that's doing the pulling. It doesn't always pull you towards the earth. It could pull you towards the moon. Right now, gravity is pulling us towards the sun. That's the gravity of the sun. So gravity does the pulling. It pulls you towards things. And the bigger something is, the more gravity it has. We'll get into that later on. But force, pretty easy to go through there. So for those of us in class, you are filling in the blank here. If you're at home, you can do that on your own. If you're at home and you see this slide here, I'd make it time to watch this. It's about some kids that go to a theme park. It's a very interesting thing to watch. And do not skip that slide. I have no doubt when I say this that we've been outside at recess at some point and thrown a ball, played volleyball, kicked a kickball, thrown a frisbee, something of some sort outside during recess. And it would be a very short recess if it weren't for gravity. I go to throw the ball to Kaylee, and the ball never comes back down. Hey, Miss Weevil, we need the kickball. Sure, here's a kickball. She kicks the ball to me, and it never comes back down. Well, Miss Weevil, that was fun. It's time to go in, because there's no more equipment. Right? And Trevor jumped off the slide, and he never came back down, so you might need to call Miss Davis and his parents. Right? But that's not how it works, is it? I throw the frisbee to Kaylee. The frisbee comes back down. She throws the ball to me. Somebody kicks the ball during a game. The ball comes back down because of gravity. Now, you'll notice that we wrote on the anchor chart, gravity is a force that pulls. Gravity on Earth pulls you towards Earth. The sun's gravity pulls you towards the sun. This is important, Seth. It's because of the sun's gravity that we rotate around the sun. The Earth is trying its best at an insane speed to move in a straight line. But the sun is pulling on it at the same time. And we'll clean out some desks and talk about this later on. But it's gravity. Gravity keeps the Earth or the moon in rotation around the Earth. Gravity keeps the Earth in rotation around the sun and all the other planets as well. And we'll talk about some of that a little bit. So again, gravity, a force that pulls. If you want to jot that down in your notebooks, you may. Teaching with two computers is hard, but gravity's not. So when you jump on the playground, you jump off the slide, your legs push you away, but you don't have enough power in your legs to overcome the gravity pulling you back towards the Earth. And it keeps us pulled back down, which is very, very important. Here's a quick quiz for the people in class. Here's a quick quiz for the people that happen to be at home. All right, let's talk a little bit about friction. Now, if you watch the video, again, this is kind of odd. I feel like we've said the word friction like a bunch on our morning work. I don't think I'm wrong about that. I think gravity has been on our morning work. Force, a push or a pull, has been on our morning work. So again, we're hitting some review on things that we kind of already know, but we're digging a little deeper into it. And friction is one of those things. Now listen, I can look at this slide all day long. Two objects sliding against each other. A force called friction makes them stick together. Depending on the two objects, they either don't stick together very well or they stick together like very well. And that doesn't make too much sense to me, although we'll do something in class that'll help it make a little bit more sense. Is there friction between ice skates and the ice? We know that friction slows things down. Do you eventually slow down on the ice? Eventually, yes. Is there a lot of friction? No. Is there friction between these boots and the rocks? A whole lot more so than the friction on the ice, correct? So again, when you're talking about friction, understand that friction slows things down and stops them. When you have friction, you also build up a lot of heat. Friction between things builds up heat. Now the friction, because there's not a lot of friction between the ice and the ice skate, the odds of you building up a whole lot of heat pretty low. Between the shoes and the rocks, probably not. But if you've ever slammed on your brakes on your bike and then felt the tire where it was rubbing against the ground, you're like, holy cow, that tire is hot. That's because friction is starting to build up heat. All right, look at your vocabulary sheet, right? The vocabulary sheet says inertia is the tendency of an object to stay at rest unless acted on by a force, or the tendency to stay in motion unless acted on by a force. And I'm going to be very honest with you. Reading all of that takes a minute for me to understand until I learn about it. It's very easy. We did it with the softball here. I want you to imagine a bowling ball sitting in the grass. Visualize it. I would imagine that bowling ball would be there at the beginning of recess and still sitting in the same spot at the end of recess. As a matter of fact, it would be there tomorrow in the same spot, wouldn't it? Yeah. Have those football pads moved since we started school? No, they've been in the exact same spot since they were where they were at the beginning of school. Now, unless someone picks those things up and moves them, that is inertia. An object is very happy just sitting there, right? The ball that we had in the floor, was just sitting there until I started kicking it around the floor. Once I rolled it, the ball was actually thinking, I'm pretty happy. I'll happily keep on rolling. Unless something slows it down and stops it. And what did we just learn slows things down and stops things, Josh? Friction is one of the big things that slows it down and stops it. So, is inertia really all that hard? No, it's a difficult, weird term, but it's really not that bad. I wrote on the anchor chart, inertia is an object at rest, stays at rest unless acted on by a force. And an object in motion stays in motion unless acted on by a force. The car that you are in on the way home, the bus, will continue to move unless a force, friction, stops it. And that would be somebody putting their foot on the brake, wouldn't it? Otherwise, it's just going to keep on rolling. Just going to keep moving. Inertia is really not that bad. Ooh, I got to get my Newton's cradle out tomorrow. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get that out tomorrow. So we'll stop right here. So I will pause this